Hello and welcome to Drive Retro, where this time we're going to be taking a look at the Lancia LC2 Group C sports car. Now, Lancia are a bit of an odd fish, to be honest with you. Although they aren't technically defunct, they are a part of the Fiat group, and at the moment, if you want anything with a Lancia badge, it's probably going to be a rebadged Chrysler. Which is a real shame because Lancia at one point were an iconic manufacturer. Certainly if you looked at them anywhere from probably the late 70s all the way through to the early 90s if you're a motorsports fan. So what did Lancia do? Why did this car exist? How well did it get on? And then how fast can I make it go? So to start off with, Lancia are primarily known as a company associated with rallying if you're looking at motorsport. So starting off with the Stratos in the late 70s and then going into the Lancia 037, the Delta S4, and then obviously onto the Delta Integrale. They were pretty much the gold standard when it came to making fast rally cars. So they've also dabbled in sports car racing and Formula One. And this is actually the second car that has been dubbed a Lancia Ferrari. The first was back in the mid-1950s, where you had the Lancia D50, which was designed and first competed in 1954. And Lancia raced these cars into the 55 season, but with the death of Alberto Ascari, their team leader, they packed up their Grand Prix operations and handed everything over to Ferrari, and the cars ran in Ferrari colours in the 1956 and 57 seasons, known as Lancia Ferraris. So they won the title in 56 at the hands of one Manuel Fangio, but very quickly they faded from competitiveness and had been replaced by the time it rolled around to 1958. So this is the second Lancia Ferrari, and the reason for that is that although Lancia developed the chassis with help from Abarth and Dallara, obviously Abarth you might know as the sporty imprint, a bit like Cooper are for Mini. So sporty editions of the 500 from Fiat are spruced up with a Bath insignia. Now the Dallara, you might know them from making the chassis for the current generation of Indy cars, and in fact they've been making those since 2012. So they were all responsible on the chassis side of things, and what Ferrari brought to the party was their V8 engine that came out of the Ferrari 308. Now this was not really suitable for going Group C sports car racing, so they chucked a twin turbo in there to boost the power output, and obviously they fettled the engine as things went along. So now you've got some pretty high caliber input on both the chassis and the engine front. So why did they need this, and how well did it get on? Well, Group C sports car racing came about at the start of 1982. This was a replacement for the Group 6 regulations that had been in place previously, and Lancia needed a new car because their LC1 was open-topped, and they needed a custom-built closed cockpit car going forward for the new Group C regulations. There was a crossover period from 82 to 83 to get everyone used to things, and then in 83 onwards, if you wanted to score points, you had to have a compatible car. So that's what Lancia did, and they ran a factory effort with this car from 1983 through to 1986, when they basically gave up and went off to go rallying instead, and to throw all their efforts behind that. And you could say, given their success, they were justifiable in doing so. Bit of a shame though, but this car had 4 years of factory support and then went on to have some more runs in the hands of privateers, but without much success afterwards. So this car competed in 51 Group C sports car races. It won a grand total of 3 of them, which isn't great. That's not a good hit ratio, however you slice it. It did, however, get 13 pole positions and 11 fastest laps. So clearly there was some speed in the car. The problem really was unreliability. These cars would often fail to finish for a plethora of reasons, and also they struggled with their tyres. Now they changed tyre manufacturer. They went firstly with Pirelli, then went to Dunlop, and finally ended up on Michelin's. So they struggled with tyres throughout the lifespan of the car, and overall it could have gone better. So this car is, I think it's a classic. It's a beautiful looking car. I'm really keen to give this a go. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be the fastest thing on four wheels. There will be points where I make some mistakes, but let's give this a go and see how it works. Okay, so let's take you on a lap of the Nürburgring. So, coming up to the final corner, on the brakes, first gear, nice and smooth. On the way into the left-handed hairpin, just running a little bit wide there through the corner, could have taken it a little bit tighter there. Dropping it into third gear round here. I know you can take it faster, but I found that you get understeer if you weren't careful. Now dropping this down into second gear for this series of corners, just trying to keep everything nice and tidy, just dropping that wheel on the inside there, not going too high up the curbs. This isn't as bad at oversteer as power oversteer with some of the cars I've come across, but still you don't want to take any chances. So if you do not brake before this, the car will take off. So I've dropped it into third here, keeping it nice and tight and tidy round here, then full power, absolutely everything you've got. Now run this right up to the red line when you're changing gear. In this version of the mod that I'm using, the gear ratios are fixed, but they seem to do an okay job. Fourth gear through there, dropping it all the way down to first. Now, first and second are actually quite long on this, so you can stay in second for quite a while, and actually it's quite a good gear to be in a lot of the time. Full power down the hill, keeping it all nice and tidy, into the drop, and drop it to fourth as you come up here. Again, dropping it down to second. In some cars you'd hold third round here, into first gear. Just a little bit of oversteer there, keeping it all nice and tidy. Back on the power again. Now again here you want to brake earlier than you think you do. Get it into third and then just hug the inside, let it drift wide. And yeah, you see I put that wheel in the dirt there, just overcooked it ever so slightly. Don't get it out of second here because you'll need to go straight back into second for this corner. The forces are trying to shove you wide there into the wall. This doesn't necessarily grip in some areas as well as you'd think. Keeping it in both third and second round here, depending on your entry. Dropping it down now into first for this section, and then powering back out. Again, the gearbox is your friend here. You can slow the car with engine braking quite nicely, keeping it in second here, tucking it in tight and getting on the power. Little wiggle there as I went over the curbs. So with Group C cars, be careful on the curbs because they run so low to the ground. You only want to get up to fourth there before dropping it to second. Again, I'm keeping it tight, just letting it run a little bit wider there. That bit of curb's okay. And then full power now around the back of the circuit. Just everything this car has. So quick. Now, this corner, to be honest with you, I do lift off and drop it down a couple of gears to third because fourth it just bogs down a little bit. You want to get up to fourth through there, and then here I would normally get into first gear just to give you that drive out the corner. It's hard to get it stopped. The car will lock the brakes and want to just understeer straight off. Carousel is actually quite good. Drop it in there, first gear, nice and tight, nice and tidy. And then get it straightened up before you put the power in, otherwise you will spin off. This is not the first lap I did, I hasten to add. So up to third gear around here. Keeping it nice and quick, dropping it back to second as you go up the hill. Keeping it in second gear around here. Nice and tidy. And then dropping it down the hill. Again, this car will understeer if you let it, so just be careful. Using second and third quite a lot here. Second for the engine braking, third to take you out of the corners and onwards. And then as you get down the bottom here, you can run wide there. Up to YouTube corner, nice and tidy, second gear. And then if you take it back into second through here, it's difficult to get the car pointed in the right direction through there. Full power, brake, a little bit of air, and then second gear around here, winding it up again. Again, you've got to be careful, because if you full power at the wrong points, it will just spit you off the track. Like here, you see I hit the curb there, off the road, keep the power on, managed to get myself out of it, down to third gear, then second for this. Mini carousel, drop it to second. Saw they just backed it in a little bit. A little bit of a wiggle on the power as you head out of there. And then it's just keeping this going and finding the right point to bury the throttle. And away you go. I'll let you listen to the engine noise now. Then up the hill, hitting the brakes, slowing it down, using the gears as well. Little untidy there, but managed to hold it. Bit of a wiggle. Get it sliding, turned in, across the line, and that's a 6:35. Now, as I'm sure you'll notice, I did run off the track, and that would have invalidated the lap. I did do another lap just beforehand that was about half a second slower, so I think the speed's there, and I can definitely improve the time by probably a few seconds if I take things a bit more smoothly and a bit more tidily. So other than that, I really enjoyed driving the car, and it's good to get back into making YouTube videos after a bit of a gap. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed. See you soon.